Welcome to Vendetta Sports Media. This is Eight Sided Freaks. Today we are here with a UFC 311 recap, headlined by Islam Makhachev and Renato Moicano. Obviously, had all the late replacement and movement going on the last second, but we still had two title fights and a couple fights that are pretty impactful for their division. So we do have quite a bit to break down and talk about, and we can get right into it. We can start right at the main event. Islam Makhachev, Renato Moicano. Moicano steps in, thankfully, on a day's notice, supposed to fight Beneil Dariush, and he goes out there and gets, with all due respect, routed by Islam Makhachev. Submission in the first round. Anthony, we can swing it over to you first. What did you make of Islam Makhachev's performance in the main event?
I thought it was good. It's kind of tough to look bad in a first round submission, but um, I think he put it that way himself too. He said something along the lines of, "That's the performance you're supposed to have when you're fighting the 10th ranked dude in the world or whatever, when you know you're the best on the planet." And so, fair enough. Got the good little submission in there, but it's tough knowing the fight we were all excited for that we could have had, or where it was. I don't know. I think you guys agreed. Like I said, arguably one of the best fights you could put on in the sport. I thought between Islam, who might be the best fighter in the UFC, and then the number one contender. But he couldn't control what happened. Went out there and did what he needed to do, and got another defense under his belt.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty straightforward. It seemed for Islam, and to what you just said, yeah, you're supposed to do that. It's meant to be that easy when you're fighting a guy who hasn't prepared for you on one less than a day's notice, who's ranked 10 spots below you. It's meant to be done like that, and I guess props to him. He could have kind of relaxed a bit and gone in and maybe gotten hit a couple more times or something along those lines. Could have let his guard down a bit, but he didn't. Went full at him, right at him, and did what he had to do and did what he was supposed to do in this one.
Yeah, I will say I'll give him a lot of credit for the path to victory. I kind of thought this was going to be, um, he was going to go out there and strike. I thought it was going to be more Islam, grappling defensively. I thought Moicano was going to try and grapple, but Makhachev went out there. It's Moicano is someone I look at as heavy BJJ specialist and add some other things to his game, but like his submission skills are really the best aspect of his game. Well, submission skills, and then he uses that tussle setup, some control time and ground and pound, but it's all grappling based, and things start point one because of his submission game and ability to get to good spots on the ground to work. So I was impressed that like the path to victory was taking down Moicano and submitting him and setting up a nice Darce choke. So I think that was really impressive considering, I kind of thought it was going to be a striking based route to the finish. And I thought that Islam may not put the foot on the gas in the first round. I picked second round in the preview. I thought, this may be a situation where Moicano comes out aggressive, thinking, I'm going to throw, some Hail Marys early, try and get the finish here because that was really his only route to victory. But, it ended up just being Islam not really eating any clean shots on the feet, landing the takedown, getting subs. So very impressive path to the victory. And I will say there was that one moment where he got hit on the shoulder and fell. Kind of looked like he got knocked down. Live, I was like, oh, wow. And then, like, he's not really wild or anything when he gets up. So I'm like, all right, that must have not been a clean knockdown. They showed the replay, and, he hits him on, like, the shoulder area, and he falls down. So pretty clean. I don't think he absorbed a single hard shot, and he landed the submission. So good performance for Islam. And I, to be honest, I don't really think that's the most interesting point in the discussion. I think the more interesting point is where we go from here, because now we're left with the question of, does Arman Tsarukyan get the shot again after he pulled out, or should the UFC go in a different direction? I guess the answer to that is Dana said that they were going to go in a different direction, and Tsarukyan was kind of like, yeah, that's fair. So the next shot probably won't be Tsarukyan, but I do want to get your guys' opinion on if that's the route that you would take, even though it's seemingly what the UFC is doing. So I do want to get your opinion on if you agree with the UFC's decision to not give it to Sarukian, and then now with Sarukian out of the picture, who's the fighter that you want to see get that title shot? So Jerry, we can send that one over to you first this time.
My biggest issue with that is the whole Saruki thing is I don't know what really happened behind the scenes. If he did actually pull out because he tweaked his back a little bit and it's something he could have fought through and done all that, I don't think he has any right getting the title shot after. If it was something serious that and then there's the other thing, if it was something serious that he already knew about and still kind of faked his way, did everything, that might be even worse. So I don't think it's Sarukian. I wouldn't mind seeing him fight a Charles Oliveira or someone like that, just because, I mean, like, you have your shot, and we've talked about it on here before. Title shots come by, and either you do them or you don't. And the sport keeps moving so quickly, especially in this lightweight division. We'll also have a fight that we'll touch on more in detail later about UFC 313, Dan Hooker and Justin Gaethje. And shoot, if Gaethje comes out and puts on a masterclass there, why not give him a title shot? He hasn't fought. I don't believe he's fought Islam yet. So maybe he earns it. Maybe an Oliveira and Sarukian rematch, winner gets it. So I realistically think it'd be one of those three. If Dan Hooker was to pull off the upset, I'm fine to give it to him. But we saw how that fight went the first time, and I don't know if it will go much different.
I agree. The one thing with that Dan Hooker one though, wasn't that like on a week's notice or like a couple days notice?
Yeah,
but
so
those still the same holes in the game or the same advantages though there. But I don't know. It sucks because I think I don't love the decision, especially since I've seen Dana and the UFC not care before when stuff like this happens to the Dana White privilege guys and stuff like that, like Tony would say. But I've seen them when they give special treatment to some fighters, and not that giving him, giving him a rematch when you just had your title shot, or I'm sorry, giving you a rematch when you just had an attempt at one and then had to pull out would be special treatment. But it's tough. I think that's the best fight to make, and so I wouldn't mind if they rebooked that. But like you said, Charles is on a streak right now, and we'll see what happens with that Gaethje other one. It just sucks too if Arman has to fight a Charles or say Gaethje wins, and because there's not much for Islam to do. Like there's only a certain amount of fights you can make, and you're gonna be basically killing off a contender if you book that fight compared to if you rebook with Arman and then say Gaethje wins. There's a Gaethje Oliveira fight or something for like number one contender after that. You could still have two good fights with no one coming off of like losses or anything. So that's the only thing I would say. And then the other thing is Arman's the number one, for a reason. He's, been on that streak, just beat Charles. I'd want to see Islam fight someone good, and not saying Moicano's not good, but he's fought Volk coming up off a weight class twice. He fought Poirier, which fair, that's his best thing. And then now his other defenses against a 10th ranked, and Poirier is old too. It's not even
Poirier, I don't think that's fair. Like you're being really nice to Poirier. I think Poirier is fairly washed at this point. So like, thank you for being nice to Poirier, but like you're giving him more credit for that win than I would. That's all I'll say.
No, exactly. And so I just want to see Islam's starting to get up there and goat talks and stuff, and it's like, well, can you beat someone that's at your weight, that's still in their prime or still really good? Like I just want to see that. So that's why I wouldn't mind if the Arman was booked immediately again.
I do
agree with that. Go ahead.
I just have a quick question. Didn't Islam say in the post-fight press conference something along the lines of he wanted to fight 4 times this year, or at least 3 more times? I could be completely wrong and may have seen something completely different. But
I didn't see that, but I could have swore I saw he said that he wanted International Fight Week, which would put him at like a pretty good pace for that, which I'd love to see him return at International Fight Week. One of the things we talked about in one of, I don't remember which episode it was, but we've talked about that in a recent episode about how I'd love for him to get active. Like this is a year where he could really take out some names and really cement himself for like a fight of the year talk. Cause like he's done a lot of good things, but like last year, like he wasn't even considered for fighter of the year talk based purely off like activity. So I'd like to see him get himself in that type of conversation. But as for what's next for him, the one name I'll throw out there that I don't think either of you guys did, unless I was just off in space, is Max Holloway. Like, I don't see why Max isn't in the talks here, considering he's got his win over Gaethje at 300, and like if he didn't go back down to fight Topuria, he could have just got the title shot right off that. So I think if we're not giving the shots to Sarukian, and I actually wouldn't have minded to see the Sarukian fight for similar reasons as to you, Anthony, is like, I mean, I think it's a great fight. Like, to me, if you put Sarukian's name on your resume in a 5-round title fight, to me, that's impressive for a guy that people are calling him the lightweight GOAT. And listen, I think Islam's great, but lightweight GOAT's crazy considering I get he's got one more title defense than Khabib, but like Khabib's run was like miles better in my opinion. Even if it's shorter, just like the quality. Like they both beat Poirier, but like holy hell, Poirier was way better when Khabib fought him. Like
Islam had a cakewalk to the belt,
mobility
too,
in his hips
as well.
Yeah.
He so like there's just no names there
fights
throughout, really.
Yeah, his best win is honestly Charles to get the belt.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good win, but like, I mean, like, I don't think his resume has been exceptional. I don't really think the Volk short notice fight to me is really that all that impressive. I think the first one is impressive. I don't know how to rank that on like in a historical context, considering the weight classes and height and all that stuff. But like his title run for like a someone we're considering the GOAT of like a premier weight class, I think is a little wishy-washy. And I guess Holloway may not really answer that question considering he's coming up from 145, but he did just go out there and knock out Gaethje, and I think he does have the frame. You know, he's not as big as Islam. Islam's massive for the weight class. And that's a whole nother discussion that you kind of have to consider is who do we want him to fight before he goes to 170? Because, like, I'm not sure how much longer Islam's got at 155, but, like, if we could get him, like, 2 or 3 more fights at lightweight, I think that'd be, like, a pretty good outcome if you're trying to extend his resume. And another thing is, even if you're giving him, like, Max, Armin, you do have Topuria probably coming up eventually, so, like, I think a way to work this is you could do like a Max fight now, do your Charles and Armin contender, then do the winner of that, and then do Topuria. That could be like the bow tie on his run, if that makes sense. But even then, I feel I don't love the idea of killing the contender like you guys were talking about with Topuria and with Armin and Charles. I see that argument as well. I don't think there's a perfect answer here.
Yeah, you bring it up 170. I was just thinking about that as well. I don't know if he would go up, and I know we need to have the Bilal and Shavkat fight first, and we don't have a date or anything for that yet. But if they were to kind of schedule Armin and not give him the next shot and not give it and wait for these other fights to play out, do you think that's a realistic option for him to go up for a fight? But I guess at the same time, he'd have to wait for something there as well. So I guess I answered my own question. But.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's true. It's tough. I don't think you're saying him still have the belt, but just take a fight at 170 and then come back down.
I mean, he could possibly do that. I don't know if he would do a fight at 170 that wouldn't be the title, but maybe something happens and he gets fights for an interim belt or something. I don't know, depending on how long Bilal's out for.
Yeah. Kind of like I'm still just on the side of if you're gonna go up, I think you should just go up, and and that be that, especially if you're champion. But because like Volk would never the whole time, like because we see champ fights all the time now and stuff, but Volk was like never gonna go up to 155 and like stay there. He wanted to go double champ status, right? But that's why it worked for Holloway though, and it was UFC 300 and everything, so it was all special BMF belt, all that stuff. But that is a good point. In my head, I was thinking, oh, Holloway needs a win. I forgot he has the Gaethje win. That was that. So yeah, I definitely can see that argument too. I see why how that name could work in there too. And then I don't know. Same way, I guess, if you want to make Holloway fight one of those contenders, but I don't know. This is a good thing though. All these problems come from Islam being so good and beating, some other names, and just kind of the other names have kind of just aged out too. That's why it's tough. It's just at a kind of weird point in lightweight for that we're having these kind of reasons where so all the studs that were here are kind of aged out or retired and stuff, and you still just need a little bit clarity with those last little top three people.
Yeah, and I as far as my opinion on the Islam 170 goes, I don't have any. I wouldn't be mad if he went up to 170 and got a title shot. I do think that division is in a place right now where there's finally some competitive, some title challengers that I'm interested in seeing. For example, in my opinion, we have to see Bilal and Shavkat, and then you've got JDM and Leon, and that could if JDM wins, there's in my mind, there's no discussion towards the fact that he gets a title fight. Leon wins, you could discuss and argue whether that's enough to get him back into a title fight. But for JDM, if you go out there and beat Leon, it's in my opinion, no discussion. That's the guy anybody should be looking to beat to get a title fight at 170. So I think that should be considered. And I think that when Islam goes up to 170, I think that's done. I think 155 is just no longer a question, or no longer even a possibility. I don't think there's any coming back down, just considering how big he is. I assume they'd probably prep him for that 170 fight, probably get him even a little bit bigger to the point where if he gets a little bit bigger, I don't think there's any coming back to 155 based on how big that weight cut is. I think he's just that big for that 155-pound weight class. So I do think that is important. And just for me, I'm not ready to put a bow on Islam at 155. I think there's just too many fights that I want to see. Right now, I want to see the Holloway fight. I want to see the Oliveira fight. I want to see the Sarukian fight. I want to see the Topuria fight. Doesn't mean we get all of them. Maybe a couple of those guys fight first and take one of the others out. But there's 4 fights there that I think are all the great fights that I'd love to see. So I'm not ready to call it a chapter for Islam at 55. So I'd love to see him stay active and take out as many of those guys as possible. Because if he's looking to build a legacy, if you take out 2 of the 4 guys I just named, the legacy, in my opinion, would double. If you take out 3 of them, I mean, it's tripling. So I doubt he even fights all 4. So I wouldn't even throw that possibility out there. But I just think there's past to him having a sensational, lightweight resume. And I'm just not ready to see that ship sail yet. He can go up to 170 and fight for the doubles eventually, assuming he gets through the 55 round, and then he can relinquish that title after the fight, basically. You can do the interim during the time, but that's probably a little bit down the road. But that's kind of my thought on the 170 stuff.
Yeah, I like that. Just kind of finish everything off at 155, leave no questions about anyone, and then just go up and stay
That's
up.
Yeah, that's the last thing for I would love to say I need to see for legacy wise too. I think Armin. Okay, I've always really wanted to see the Charles again, but I think a Charles and Armin are the necessity to fully stamp the legacy. And then if we're being greedy, but if we really ever get to see it, then obviously the Taporia too. That's more like the icing on the top of just things work out like that. But I don't think there's no reason to go up before you fight Armin and Charles, especially for someone that's so strong on wanting to show he's the best fighter of all time and the best fighter on the planet. Well, it's those are the 2 best fights there for you. And I mean, if you really do believe in yourself like that, those wins they should do more. Well, they'll do more for everyone, but they should do more for you than beating someone like Moicano. So
Also, another small thing, I'd like to see him try and back if he ever fights Topuria and Topuria gets that double champ shot and wants him into lightweight. I'd like to see him back to back though. So I'd like to see the Topuria fight be the last one, double champ, and then run that right into a double champ at 70 or a move up to 70. I think that'd be a good way to go out, because in theory for him, that could lead to 2 back-to-back double champ fights for him. One as the defending champ, one as the earning champ. I think that's a really cool storyline, and it would be 2 sensational back-to-back wins to put on your resume.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if I were him, that's kind of where I'd be trying to position myself long term.
That'd be really cool to see. See him just kind of push off the upcomer and then, or the guy moving up, and then go and be that dude.
Mm-hmm.
I just have one more question about Islam and all this, just while we were talking about him. Did you guys see that he said he thinks he could go up to middleweight in the future?
Yeah, I did see that.
I don't know that I'm sure he can. We were talking already about how big he is for this weight class, and I'm sure he could put on all the weight. And we saw how Habib has moved up about 6 weight classes since he retired. I'm sure they have the skill to do that again for Islam and keep him in fighting shape. But do you guys like that idea in the future of him potentially trying to go up 3 divisions?
That stemmed from him not wanting to fight Bilal, right? Because they've trained together and stuff.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'll just jump another division then. But I mean, I won't hate. Like I said, best fighter, one of the best fighters on the planet, if not the. I'll never get mad at crazy opportunities to see him fight other people. But yeah, I would prefer him just move up 1 weight class. Let's not like reinvent the wheel here. Just you could do 1 first. But I mean, if he's gonna go for up 2, would that be DDP and Chimaev and stuff? So doing those are
on Strickland.
Yeah.
Shit, I'd take him against Strickland.
That'd be 3 weight classes right
could
there.
Could he be an underdog, please?
But no, I agree. I mean, there's some interest there.
Yeah, I would think it'd be really stupid if we're jumping from 55 to 85. I think that'd be I'm not really interested in that. Yeah. But I think if he goes up and defends a couple times at 70, against some good fighters, and then decides he wants to run up to 85, and he hasn't lost. If he gets a loss in there, and all of a sudden it starts to change a little bit, but if he defends 2 or 3 times at lightweight, then goes up there, wins 2 or 3 times, and instead of talking about 185, at that point, screw it. But I would like to see him. I don't like that 55 to 85. To me, now we're talking crazy, and I think even saying oh, yeah, he's just going to run 155, and then I'll go up to 170 and run that. Even that's being a little optimistic and giving him, a lot of leeway that would just be a walk in the park for him. But if he can do that, sure, go ahead, man. If you can accomplish that, at that point, do whatever the hell you want, honestly.
Yeah, you deserve I'm in the same boat. I think go up to 170 after a few more 155s. And if you really are like, oh, this is too easy, and he makes it look like a cakewalk, then why not?
And a heavyweight when he's 42.
Yeah.
I mean, you bring DC back, and he's already ready to fight him.
Yeah, that is true.
Before we hop off the main event, any opinions on Moicano's future? He was booked against Dariush. This fight wasn't he could have went in there and really rose his stock. I'm not going to say his stock dropped, but I don't think, this performance from Moicano wasn't let me see him in there with Oliveira and Gaethje and, go back down to 10 and try and work yourself up the way you were. That's kind of my opinion on the situation. Do either of you guys disagree with that? Anthony, we can swing it over to you first.
No, I would probably rebook the Dariush fight. I thought that was super fun to begin with, of a little litmus test to see where he's at against good people, and then we didn't get to do it because he had to fight the best, the best one. But I would say, yeah, just rebook the Dariush fight. Maybe there's Chandler there, or Patty. Let's see if Patty Pimblett. I don't know if he would have to get booked first and win for that to be a little bit more fun. But yeah.
That's the name I was gonna throw out there, is Patty Pimblett, just as if, because Moicano didn't look like he took much damage. Maybe he'd be ready to go. I know they have 11 fights on the UFC England card. I don't know if they're going to add any more, but there's no Patty Pimblett on it as it stands. No, he's a fan favorite there. So, I mean, and we've talked about the UFC rankings and how they're kind of chaos, the way they move up and down people. But somehow, Patty Pimblett has gone up a couple spots. Why BSD has dropped 2 spots. Jailton Turner went up. So suddenly he's only 2 spots out below Moicano. So maybe that's one that they could make. Otherwise, Dariush, rebook it. Might as well. I think that'd be a good fight. Or maybe the loser of Hooker and Gaethje, depending.
Yeah. Credit to the UFC ranking people for just sneaking up Paddy Pimblett a couple ranks every time. Nobody's looking. Next thing you know, he's going to be 7th, and you're like, whoa, what the hell? Like
Wait a second.
every time you turn your head, he's up another spot. Every time they get updated. I will say I did see a rumor from a Twitter account that I have a decent amount of trust in that not very many people follow that does pretty good breaking news early. Said Paddy already has a fight and it isn't Moicano. So I have seen that. May be true, may not be true. So it's a little bit of a rumor there, but I have seen that he does have a fight booked that's just not announced and it's not Moicano. So
Curious, would that be for the England card or would it just be?
I assume so. I assume it's for the England card, but that wasn't necessarily stated. But
that's fair.
Based on, like you said, it's got 11 fights, and Paddy Pimblett isn't one of them. We've got Molly McCann on the main card, so like you got to get Paddy in there somehow. So,
yeah.
All right, let's take this down to the co-main event. Merab Dvalishvili, Umar Nurmagomedov. Merab goes out there, wins a 48-47 on 2 scorecards and 149-46. Fight, I think, was a little bit closer on the scorecards than in reality. You had Umar winning, in my opinion, I had it 48-47. You had Umar winning the first 2 by, I'd say, small margins. I mean, one judge gave it to Merab, and I'm not like, how could he? Like, it's small margins. Umar taking the first 2. I thought Umar actually looked really good in the first 2 rounds. And then in round 3, it's like, oh, Umar's starting to look a tad bit tired. And we've still got 15 minutes of Merab doing what Merab's going to do. This isn't going to go well. And, by the halfway point around 3, it started to not go well. And then round 4, at that point, it certainly doesn't go well. And then round 5, the trend continues and Merab starts snowballing. The Merab snowball effect of when you start to get tired and he doesn't is like really wild. Like the second that you see someone and you're like, oh, they look a tad bit tired. The next thing you know, they can barely stand up. Because Merab does this thing where he'll attempt like 4 takedowns. He'll land the takedown just so you have to stand up and then take it down again. And the grappling is kind of ridiculous, the things he does in there. But hey, it makes people tired, so like credit to him. But Merab, this was his first title defense at 135 pounds. I think it's your turn to lead us off, Jerry. What did you make of Merab's performance? I know you're a big Merab fan, so we'll leave the or maybe fan isn't the right word, but respecter we can call it, because sometimes he doesn't get the respect he deserves. So we'll call you a Merab Dvalishvili respecter. What did you make of his performance in the coming?
I had it scored first of all the same way as you. I had Umar winning the first 2 rounds. I thought the second round was a little more clear that it was his round. I think he did more in the first, but so did Merab. And I'm just had the stats pulled up, and I think it's crazy. Umar had 15 total takedown attempts throughout 5 rounds. In the 5th round alone, he only landed 2, but Merab had 12 takedown attempts. And the whole thing of him trash talking and yelling at Khabib when he's kind of trying to be taken down just shows that he is crazy and continues to have this unreal gas tank. And I think that's kind of at the end of the day what it was. You summed it up pretty well already, that Umar looked like he was getting tired. And when you have a guy trying to take you down, whether or not he does 30 times, that's going to take a toll on your energy. And that seems like what it was, because Merab in the 4th round and then the 5th round, just pure domination.
Yeah. I think kind of like when we discussed before the fight, he doesn't have to land takedowns to win a fight, which is insane. It's just the constant pressure and the act of, not that he does it, but the act of looking like you're doing something or you're dominating when you're really not. Like physically, like Umar walked out of there looking pretty good, not like he got destroyed or dominated, but Merab's just so active, and yeah, that gas tank is otherworldly. But it's tough. But at the same time, like I picked him as to be champion at the end of the year. I thought that was an avenue. Is just he keeps that pressure. Shoots 30 times. We got up to 30 in this one, stuff. But I ended up switching at least my pick on, because I did bet on him, which I think we all did. But I did
I
pick.
did not. I was not a part of the party.
Shame on you. No,
Yeah.
but I did end up switching my pick to Umar because it's tough to, like, he's not getting Merab's not going to get the finish. It's just tough to continually like pick someone to win by what, cardio, by, I don't know, by pressure with no damage really, or like, so that's when I kind of switched, even though I was rooting for him and he was the underdog. So I was like, do I want to pick an upset pick just off of like, I think there's a chance that he just goes out there and steamrolls them with pressure and failed takedowns, and it's tough. But I mean, we'll see if someone can crack the code on him, and I guess you're gonna have to knock him out or win in the first two of those early rounds, or I don't know if you can sneak a sneaky submission in there, but I think James, you said, I don't know if you tweeted it too, or maybe it was put in the UFC chat, but you're gonna have to like beat him early, because I don't know how you beat him at 3, 4, and 5, or I was gonna say championship round, so at least specifically 4 and 5, but it's truly an enigma.
Yeah, I think to beat Merab, you kind of just have to kill him. Like if he's awake, like Marlon Moraes hurt him really bad in that fight, but like he was awake, so he kept fighting. Like in order to like beat Merab, you have to put him out cold, or like hope the ref jumps in early or something like that. If I were a ref, Merab isn't a guy I'm jumping in early on. I'll just tell you that. Like I'll run the risk of Merab taking an extra beating just because I know he's crazy, and like if anybody deserves the leeway, I think he's one of the guys that he gets the leeway. But yeah, I think to beat Merab, like you have to like put him out cold. Which I think is why a lot of people were picking Sean O'Malley against him. Like, I mean, as far as like landing a shot that puts people out cold, like I think I'm a little bit lower on like Sean O'Malley than the consensus probably is. But even then, I like recognize that like you probably shouldn't be getting hit by counters by him. Like, just not a good path to victory. You shouldn't, get hit with a knee while you're attempting a takedown. Like, there's paths for him to land crazy shots that knock people out, and like that's the type of thing that he could do. But I think that's a very small percentage. And then, like to me, it comes down to like landing that massive shot, landing a front choke. Like if I'm fighting Merab, I surprised Umar. I talked about this in the preview. Like I thought he was gonna like try and threaten front chokes. Like if he's like, not to say he's half-assing takedowns, but some of these takedowns are like to make you more tired from defending the takedown and not to land the takedown. I think those are takedowns where like, hey, you got to be attempting a guillotine or threatening a Dars or threatening something to prevent him from doing that, and then try and make him just like pressure you with striking, and then you have a better chance of like landing that shot that puts him out, or maybe even just winning rounds. Regardless, so you just can't let him attempt some of those takedowns. And Umar didn't really do that. Umar also never got to the backpack. That's one of the reasons I picked Umar, is because I thought there was a chance he could win a decision based off him landing the backpack. So, like, imagine this fight where he wins 1-2 and then backpacks in 3. And then the round 4 and 5 steamrolling just really doesn't matter. And that's obviously wasn't the reality of the situation. But, like, I think that's another way you could get Merab is backpacking him. And I thought Umar was a good guy to do that because of the length. Now that Umar is probably out of the picture for a minute, Sean's got the length, but I don't think he's backpacking anybody in his career. Same with Sandhagen. Sandhagen's got the length, and he's been grappling more recently, but like, sorry, I'm just not necessarily convinced Sandhagen's strapping on that body triangle and just wasting around away. That's just not really something I foresee. So yeah, with that being said, I don't think people can't beat Merab. I know Piotr Jan lost the first one, but like he's a pretty tricky striker, and he's the guy to land the shot. Or like if Song Yadong goes out there and beats Henry Cejudo, like, and gets another one and gets into a title shot, like, hey, Merab could out wrestle Song, but like I wouldn't want to be getting hit by Song Yadong in the pocket. So like those are some paths I could see to someone beating Merab, but even then you're kind of pointing out like specific instances and matchups rather than like a one big flaw that makes it easy to beat him. So like I think that the fact that you kind of, even when I'm sitting here talking through this, I have to get like hyper specific. It can't be just like, oh, you need to, like when O'Malley was the champ, you could say like, oh, a great grappler is going to go in there and beat him. You didn't have to get hyper specific about how that had to be done. With Merab, you kind of have to get hyper specific about the set of skills and like your path to victory. And I think that's a credit to like what his cardio and pacing does to get him the win. So a lot of credit to him. I don't want to make it seem like I'm just trying to put him down. A lot of people talk about him being unbeatable because of this cardio. So I'm trying to lay out some paths to how that could potentially be done if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, it does. And I'm just thinking off of that. What is the best thing for him is his cardio and his ability to just keep going. If you can wear down his legs early and use, like, say, O'Malley or Sandhagen, it's use some leg kicks, try and wear him down a bit and see where it goes. But going to the backpack thing, I think the reason that we don't see more people necessarily, not that they are trying to attempt it or getting to the positions, is his teammate's one of the best backpack artists we have in the UFC. So I'm sure he's learned quite a lot about how to get out of that, how to avoid getting into it in the first place. So one of that goes into his training with having Aljo in his corner and all that.
I'm willing to bet he's been in his fair share of backpacks. It just hasn't been in UFC fights.
Yeah, exactly.
It sounds like the only way is Jose Aldo not at elevation. That's the kryptonite. Let's redo that, please. 5 rounds, too.
To be fair, he never took Jose Aldo down. Jose Aldo did absolutely nothing in that fight other than defend takedowns. He did 0 offensively. He was defensive the whole entire fight, but he did not give up a takedown.
No, that is very, very true.
One quick note here. I think this is not going to happen, but I think a Deiveson Figueiredo and Merab fight would be hilarious just because Figgy's like such a dynamic finisher early, but he like gasses out so bad that it's like, well, what he's like more live to catch him than other people, but like it'd be hilarious if Figgy was just like tired in round 3 against Merab. Like that could be a hilarious fight. We're not going to see it, but that's just where my mind went when I saw Deiveson Figueiredo. The question I do want to ask you guys, what do you think is next for Merab? Because I've seen a couple names. I don't think there's one name that really separates itself from the crowd necessarily. But do you guys have any preferences on what is next for Merab? Anthony, I think it's your turn to lead us off here.
I was just looking. I didn't know what fights are booked or anything, but
I believe the only fights booked, I believe we have Henry Cejudo and Song Yadong at 7 and 8 booked for Seattle. And you've got Rob Font at 9 booked against Dominic Cruz, who is unranked.
Yeah, I guess I mean the Sean, rematch is there. I'm sure the UFC would love to do that. It's kind of tough. You can't really book Corey because he just lost to Umar, who just lost to Merab. So I think the Petr Yan's probably would be my pick. I'm trying to see what that Figgy fight was in November, so it's not that recent. I mean, not that far away. It is pretty recent. So I guess the Yan fight would make some sense. I know it is a rematch and stuff, but unless if you want to sit there and wait for a Song Yadong win, I don't know how deep the UFC would want to go low in the rankings when I think Jans has 2 impressive wins in a row, and he's sitting there at number 2. And once again, kind of it's tough to say fresh face because they fought, but fresher than the O'Malley one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Jan is the fight I want to see the most as far as for what Merab's got next. And part of that is I just want to see the fight I want to see in this division, Sean O'Malley and Corey Sandhagen. That's the fight I want to see. And I think that it makes sense and lines up for Petr Yan to fight Merab instead of either of those two for the reasons, Anthony, you just said. And it also seems like O'Malley could have been the guy for it if they're like, okay, this division doesn't have a lot of traction behind it after this fight, after this title fights. Maybe people thought it was a boring fight kind of thing. But Merab entertained, and at least seeing on Twitter and social media, seemed like people enjoyed watching that fight. One fight of the night. I think that Merab not can't. I don't know if he can necessarily be the main event headlining at the moment, but I think he's getting more towards that than he was before. Obviously, before having the title, but with Sean O'Malley being the guy who he was, where you could have him go and be the main attraction at that Noche UFC fight. I think his stock's rising a bit. The other one, and I don't know how realistic this would be, and we've talked time and time again about people moving up. I think Pantoja has some work still to do in flyweight, but the way that division is being a shit show with everybody at the top beating each other up, that's one that, because now that I think about it, I think Merab was the one who said he wanted to fight 4 times this year, not Islam. So, I mean, if he wants to fight in April or May and Pantoja's trying to fight around then, you said there's a card going to Brazil, I wouldn't be opposed to that just because they are both strong champions.
Yeah, I think that's a fun fight. I would lean the Petr Yan one. Give Kai Kara-France a title fight down at 125. And then I'd say Yan, and I don't know if Merab can headline a pay-per-view. I honestly don't know. I think there's a chance. I think he's kind of a tweener. If he can't, I don't think he's far. But I think one way you could kind of speed up that process is screw it. Let's just put O'Malley and Sandhagen right there in the co-main. 5-round co-main, have, Merab and Petr Yan fight as like a 5-round, or obviously a title fight main event. Then have the Sandhagen O'Malley 5-round. I mean, everyone wants to see that fight. Everyone loves that fight. Make it 5 rounds on a pay-per-view. Like, that's a fight I think should be 5 rounds if we're doing 5-round co-main events. And then you can kind of sell that as like a mini bantamweight tournament almost, where, the co-main gets a title shot. And there's some interesting things you could do there promotionally for however that turns out. Because say you get like all of those dudes have damn near fought each other, all of them. Like, if Jan upsets Merab and it's Sean beating Sandhagen, are we upset about seeing Sean O'Malley and Petr Yan fight for the title? Would it Sandhagen Jan for the title? I think that was a great fight the first time around. Merab Sandhagen, great fight as well. So I think you can just kind of book those 4 however you want. And I think you're getting good fights. And I think if O'Malley beat Sandhagen, then I'd put him in a similar spot as Merab. Is like, all right, well, you earned it. Congrats. I don't like the idea of giving him the rematch right now, but like, I mean, if we do that, if you go out there and beat Sandhagen, like, all right, go for it, man. Like, that's kind of the spot I'm in. But I think you could put that all on one card and make it a fun, like, little thing and promotionally. If you didn't want to put it on the same card and you wanted that to, be 5 rounds somewhere else, I get that too. But I just think like that would maximize like your trash talking potential. If you put all 4 of those guys up there on a stage and they all got to talk at a press conference, like that may be like end up being some entertaining stuff and get you not only one good pay-per-view, but you could kind of usher Merab into headlining some of these events, and you could usher that, right into the next one, and hopefully that'd sell well based on, the buildup of that kind of setup. So that's kind of an idea that I like, and I doubt that happens, but if I had it my way, that'd be the direction to be looking.
I love that. I love that shout.
Yeah.
Only way it could be any better is if they had 2 fights to open up the fight card, and then have it be the main event is the winners fight each other. I think that gets any better. But no, I love that idea of a mini tournament, because you're right. They have all fought each other pretty much. So I'm here for any of those fights.
Yeah, I couldn't. Oh, my fault.
No, I was just saying that's why this is like a weird conversation, because we're all on board with any of those 4, and that's why it's hard to point like a specific name. I just think Jan makes the most sense.
I was just saying I couldn't agree more, because before you even just laid it out, I was going to say the thing about a Sandhagen O'Malley fight is whoever wins that, they can just give the next fight. Like, you only need a one win with that type of fight. How it's everyone's, it's two of the most exciting, especially if it delivers too. If that fight lives up to like we're hoping, that'd be the easiest. Oh, one win, fine. You can fight next for the belt. So I think that would work perfectly. And then I was gonna say, funny, like you said, opened up so many options, but that Jan O'Malley fight too, I know everyone would be dying. They were waiting to, it should have been 5 rounds the first time too. So I know people would be excited about that. I think there's no wrong decisions. The UFC can't mess that up if that's how they actually decide to go ahead with it.
Yeah. And honestly, the bantamweight division is kind of a hard one to mess up. Like, on paper, Umar and Merab isn't like the craziest fight you can book, but like it still ended up delivering. Like, a lot of these fights delivered one in some shape or form, just based on the fact that all these bantamweights are so good. You can kind of pull names out of a hat and it works. Like, that's the fun of the bantamweight division.
Yeah, you're already talking about Song Yadong and Henry Cejudo, and the winner of that having a high quality fight that could be a title eliminator. Those are the, like you said, 7th and 8th ranked guys. This division is so deep, so fun. Who says no to a Jose Aldo one final run as well? But I doubt that would happen. Sadly,
if we keep talking about it, maybe
we're gonna manifest it till it happens.
Yeah, we gotta have something to talk about now that Anthony Smith is gone. We gotta have a new thing to bring up on the frequent. So
I'm surprised.
Jose Aldo.
I'm surprised Anthony Smith isn't part of this GFC draft tonight.
Yeah, well, he was busy trying to fight in Power Slap, so that was his.
Oh, that's a good point.
That was his angle post-retirement. Yeah, they told him no. All right, moving on. We have Jiri Prochazka and Jamahal Hill fighting in what was 3 fights down on the event. Jiri Prochazka goes out there, gets the knockout victory in the 3rd round, and I think it was 1-1 going into 3, so it was a competitive fight. Jiri got the drop in 1, ended up getting the knockout in 3 with Jamahal. I guess I didn't check the judges' scorecards afterwards, but I believe Jamahal won round 2. What did you guys make of this fight and Jiri's performance? Jerry, I believe it's your turn to lead us off here.
I mean, Jiri looks damn good, I will say. And we were questioning him a little bit coming into this because we're like, you've been knocked out 3 times in your last 3 fights, even if 2 of them were in the same fight, like you were saying, James, that I was a little concerned. I was on board. I thought Jamahal Hill was the second best fighter in this division going into this fight. And sure, he had a strong 2nd round, but Jiri looked like he is samurai training, and whatever he has going on was clicking, and it was one of the best performances I've seen from him in the recent UFC.
This was unfortunately, even though this was one of the fights I was looking forward to the most, this is the one I missed because I was busy. I was at a baby shower and stuff and doing other stuff, and then I got to the place late. So this was the one fight I kind of missed, but it sounded like it sounded like it was entertaining. I looking at the strike totals. I try to watch some highlights. I still want to watch it fully, all the way through with some good quality. But yeah, and then I heard Jiri was trying to keep his hand up a little bit too and stuff in the fight. But the thing, well, I'll wait. But I did see that thing of him getting interviewed with talking about his friends and partying and stuff afterwards, and I thought that was hilarious. If you guys have seen that.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen that, and Jiri has done some serious press to clear that one up.
Wait, what was this?
Him and his boys were gonna go to his hotel room and do some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Instead, he went to the bar and drank with Jamahal Hill.
Yeah, which I thought that was dope.
Yeah.
Seeing that.
That was cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was curious to see
Jiri
what you guys thought.
made it. Yeah. Jiri made it seem like he was going to be doing some crazy things with his fellas after the fight, and he has since come out and said no. I'm pretty sure he did an interview. I saw the clip like 10 minutes before we started, and I was getting ready, so I didn't watch it. But the headline was Jiri Prochazka confirms he is not in all caps gay. So he has been doing serious PR to make sure that is not the takeaway from his interview.
So real quick, I would say real quick. It was with Megan O'Leary afterwards. I think he said something like, "My good childhood, like, cause they're good childhood friends." He's like, "From my village, they're crazy guys, and they're gonna come up to our room, and I'm gonna show them something," or something like that. And then afterwards, he was talking with Schmo, and then he was trying to clear it up, and then like midway through, he's like, "You see, it's gonna sound weird. I can't do this. Like, it's just a language barrier." But it's so funny because he's like the nicest guy ever, and I don't think he knows what like internet trolls are, and that they're just messing with them and stuff. But
Okay.
Yeah, it did end up being pretty funny. I will say at this point in the card, listen, I do my best to. There's rare times where I'm not like tuned in 100% when fights are going on. Very rare times, but the Lions were playing in a playoff game, and I had two screens going on, so I'm trying to watch both. And this is like the point in time where, like, by the time the co-main was over, the Lions were cooked, and it wasn't even paying attention. But at this point, it's like, all right, are we gonna get blown out, or are we gonna make the comeback? So these next couple fights are kind of like wishy-washy for me. In similar position, I didn't really want to, track down the, you know, 2040 footage on YouTube that has half the fight missing, and it's not dropped on Fight Pass yet, so it's all that to deal with. But I did try and pay attention as close as I could to this fight, so I'm not like coming in here blind. But I did think Yuri looked good. I thought his head movement looked good. I saw a lot of things that I liked from Yuri. I think his durability looked good. That's the one thing that I really talked about a lot was durability, durability, durability. Every post, every conversation was durability, and it really wasn't a concern. I thought it was going to be. I was wrong. Um, it doesn't mean it's as good as it once was, but in this particular instance, it didn't really play a factor here. If anything, he had really good durability. Um, so I think Yuri looked good, and I will say, like, I've been the biggest like Jamal Hill supporter. I mean, I've got a post on the site saying he'd become champion. Like, I've said a lot of amazing things about Jamal Hill throughout his career. I've picked him in, I think, every fight in his career. I've never picked him to lose a fight. And I say this not trying to be like negative or like I don't want to be like I don't like saying this based on how much I've supported him, but I just the guy that was in there on Saturday, in my opinion, wasn't really, I didn't see it the same as I did when he was on the come up and when he was fighting Glover. I just didn't see the same level, and it's not to say he is, light years away from where he was. But at that level, a slight decrease in quality ends up being the margin of victory or loss when you're fighting other great guys. And it doesn't mean you should hang up the gloves, but like I think it's very evident that he tears his Achilles, he comes back from the Achilles, he gets knocked out, he gets injured. Again, he has the knee problem, and he comes out here rocking two knee braces, and I'm like, or two knee sleeves, and I'm like, well, that's never a good sign. What the hell's going on here? Um, and then he just didn't. I don't think the striking was as elite as it once was. Jamal, at one point in his career, I think, was one of the most underrated strikers in the fact that he would just find ways to land shots. And not to say there wasn't a rhyme or rhythm behind it, because there was, but he was just always, the second the moment presented itself, um, he would land the shot and he'd knock somebody out. In this fight, I think when the moments presented themselves, he didn't pull the trigger. And I think that's a result of injuries and not competing and not being at top form. And a lot of people make fun of Jamal for being fat, but like when you tear your Achilles, like, I mean, that's one thing that can happen is you put on weight. And I do think he came into this fight slimmer than he was prior to or before the prayer fight. So I even think he's lost weight. So like I'm not even trying to say he's not working hard, but like I think there has been a decrease in quality for Jamal. And that's not me trying to take anything away from Yuri, because like you said, Jerry, I thought Yuri looked good. Like I think this was a better performance for Yuri in comparison to like his Rockets performance. So like I even think Yuri looked improved. And I think he was doing things more intelligently. The head movement was still good, and he wasn't putting himself in as many bad positions as he usually does. So, like, I do think Yuri made some positive improvements, but like, I wanted to get that off my chest about Jamal as well. Coming from someone who has paid a lot of close attention to his game since he's been in the UFC. So I think there's both sides of that coin where Jiri was a little bit better than he had been in previous outings here. And I think Jamahal was, I mean, not comparison to the Pereira fight, but in comparison to the Glover fight, the Johnny Walker fight, the Thiago Santos fight, I think there was a dip in quality for him. So, and like I said, I don't take pride in, coming up here and saying that, but that is my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm going to just go off a little bit of what you said at the end there. Is like Jamahal Hill, he wasn't landing as many shots as I expected him to. I thought he was going to kind of come out and put the pressure on Jiri. And sure, he did put some of it, but to the point you also just made, Yuri's head movement, defensive game, the fact he actually kept his hand up for a change, he looked like a different fighter from the defensive side of things. And I wonder if that kind of gave issues to Jamahal Hill's game plan, as he was expecting is what we saw in the last ones of Yuri's fights is he stands there, his hands are down, and he kind of just goes side to side and doesn't do much else as far as blocking shots goes.
And I think that's a key to unlocking himself to, being uber successful again and maybe getting the belt. We'll see, with Pereira and obviously, but is no one's really ever had a huge issue with his offensive game and the wild striking, and because that's what makes it him. That's what makes him. But the defense was always the question. So now if he can make these small tweaks and improvements defensively, you're not talking about a whole different fighter, but you're talking about a fighter that can be can win a lot more fights in that division and stuff. Because it's glad to see that durability is still there, but our whole issue was, it's gonna run out eventually, right? But now if you make these small tweaks with better defense as avoiding those strikes and not having to rely on your durability, that will also keep your durability around longer. So you still can, if you end up in a firefight, that will benefit you. And then the last thing I want to say too, and that Jamahal Hill, I think that was a great point with this massive injuries. I saw the double knee sleeves is atrocious. It's something you never want to see a fighter walk into the octagon with. But I was just say, maybe some of these issues we could have saw too, but Pereira literally did knock him out in that first round, and it was a kind of a more not super high pressure, not a crazy amount of strikes thrown, stayed on the outside. I know Jamahal, I think, was really working the leg kicks of himself. I think they were both keeping distance. So maybe some of these things could have popped up more too, of noticing a little bit of a drop off if we got to see a second round even, or maybe a third. But like I said, I didn't get to watch it. I've tried to read up or see everything I can on the fight without watching it fully. But this is still one I would want to see in real time, because right when I got to the place, all my friends said it was like a super fun fight. Like, because I got there, I think I just missed the octagon interview too, though. But it sounded like it was a good fight, a good showing for both of them. I'd say entertainment wise, if anything, though.
Yeah, I think it was a great fight from that perspective. I think this one was one that a lot of people had circled as like a fun fight, and I think it delivered on that. One more thing I'll add from a talent and skills perspective, I think Jiri did a good job of limiting the moments where he got chaotic and went away from like a more traditional offensive style. But when he did get chaotic was when he hurt Jamahal, and I think he did sensational in the third round of hurting Jamahal, applying the pressure, making sure he didn't get off the hook, and then still landed these big shots in a way that was not completely based off chaos, but there was still some technical aspects about why he landed the knockout shot, the very last one. So I think he did a good job of choosing when to get more chaotic with his offense, intelligently choosing it, not just randomly going, I'm going to get more chaotic, but it was based off an intelligent choice that he made. And then even when he got chaotic, it was a little bit more controlled chaos than just straight chaos. So a lot of positives, I think, from Jiri Prochazka to look back on. So credit to him for those things. All right. Jailton Almeida and Sergei Spivac. Any I guess passionate takes from either of you guys on Jailton Almeida and Sergei Spivac? Anthony, I believe it's your turn to lead us off, so have fun with that one.
No, I mean, it was. I got the pick right. I didn't see. I thought it was going to be sub, but good to know that when you are when you are a heavyweight, you still have power, even though it seems like Almeida never throws punches ever. Um, but I think it was a little entertaining for as much as I hate heavyweight. I wasn't totally, I didn't totally hate the fight. Um, but it just, you know, when watching, I don't know, just watching some heavyweights and then you're blessed with like Tom Aspinall or even John Jones and stuff, like even how he looks, or Stipe before he retired, there's such a sizable difference. But I think it did good enough for second fight on the card, and you got a finish out of it. People probably made money too if they took Almeida KO.
Yeah, that you summed it up. This is a fight that, and I know we are recording on Friday, so it's been a few days, but I remember virtually nothing but both of these guys going down a couple times, and then Almeida throwing some punches and some elbows, and next thing you know, the fight was over.
Yeah, when you talk about getting distracted because the Lions game's on, I mean, I honestly didn't catch much of this one. What I will say is, at one point in this fight, I saw Jailton Almeida on his back, and I went, "Oh, he's gonna quit." And I saw Sergei Spivac on his back, and I was like, "Oh, he's gonna quit." And then I saw Jailton Almeida land a shot on the feet that hurt somebody, and I was like, "Holy shit!" And that was insane. That wasn't necessarily something I was expecting. I think ground and pound KO is always live with Almeida because like he can take the back and just like, oh, I'm gonna throw punches and like I'm good at controlling you, so you won't be able to get up. So like he's always live for like the ground and pound KO. But I mean, starting the he finished it on the feet, but like starting it off with the hands was not really something I was expecting. So credit to him. I mean, Sergei Spivac isn't exactly somebody I say positive things about his striking. I'll just say that. I mean, his striking's pretty shit, but I mean, hey, I mean, that means Almeida's striking is less shit than Spivac. So like that counts for something, I think. So I mean, credit to Almeida because like I said, I thought he was going to quit in there, and he has quit in the past, and he didn't. He got back to the feet and landed the shot that ended the fight. So this is also how you separate yourself and get yourself opportunities against some of these guys in the top 5. Winning fights like this that are kind of your tweener fights. These are the ones you have to win to avoid, that top, that like 10 to 15 wasteland where guys can just sit and waste away for years just by winning 2, losing 1, winning 2, losing 1. And next thing you know, you're 15-7 and I've never really had a shot at fighting for the title. So like these are fights that you do need to win. So I'll give him credit for that. And he's like a young athletic guy. So like maybe he makes improvements and can eventually get to the point where he's a good like elite heavyweight. So I am happy Almeida won off the fact that I'm hoping he can make improvements. So
yeah, and I think
all
realistically he's got a better chance of making improvements and doing anything in this division than Spivac at this point.
Yes.
I agree.
I also want to put this out there just because I did pull up the stream behind me or in front of me, I guess. The GFL, the first overall pick. Does anyone have any guesses?
I think I'm gonna guess Saeed Yakub Kakramanov.
No.
Tyrone Woodley?
Tyrone Woodley was the first pick of this draft. This is the worst.
Wow.
This is the worst looking thing I've ever seen, and I only put it on 30 seconds ago just in time to see the introduction video. And oh good God, we have Baba O'Reilly and some great stuff for whenever the UFC has their intro to fights. This one looks like it was made by some 5-year-olds with some who were given a little too much control over a computer. So
that's what I say. You guys were naming some of the fighters. I didn't know about this, but I definitely will be checking out the full team rosters and stuff when it's all done.
Yeah, I will as well. It might be giving the PFL some run for its money.
For anyone who tunes in regularly knows, we will tend to drift off into other promotions. not a lot of positive things are said if you're not karate combat or bare knuckle. And listen,
Yes.
karate combat, you got to put an event together because it's been a minute. It has been a minute since there's one I've had to tune into. But we were joking around about the GFL before this, which I believe is the Global Fight League.
Yep.
Go look at the rosters just out of like fucking Rashad Evans is on there. Like your favorite fighter over a decade
from 10
ago is
years
on
ago.
there. Tony Ferguson was a prime signee, so like go check out the GFL. Probably don't watch any of the fights. Who was the second pick, Jerry? Was that your reaction there?
No, I have some terrible news for all karate combat fans out there.
Oh,
there was a fight, and it was today, and I think we missed it already.
Damn, we're fake fans.
We'll have it for you next week. The coverage.
No, it might be live. Oh, it is live right now. There we go. I think.
All right.
Who knows?
There's everybody's Friday night. The GFL draft and karate combat. So clear your schedules, everybody.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you're not watching these, what are you doing?
Let's head on down the card. Last fight on the main card: Reiner, the Ritter, and Kevin Holland. This is another one. I'm not gonna say I was distracted that much during this fight, but like I missed the first 3 seconds of the fight, and I look and Kevin Holland's already being grappled. I'm like, oh, all right. So I know how this fight's gonna go. Reiner, the Ritter gets control until he gets the sub. Like, with all due respect, I think Kevin Holland kind of phoned it in for this one. Do you guys have any differing opinions on Kevin Holland's effort level? Jerry, your turn to lead us off, I believe.
No. It's about that. He got taken down early and he did get back up briefly and then got taken back down, then got submitted, and he had no real right being in there with the Ritter at this point. But also maybe it shows that either Kevin Holland is kind of finally getting past where he once was, even being an entertaining fighter, which is sad because he was always fun and was always ready to scrap. While the Ritter, might be a marquee win to kind of push him towards a ranked fight.
Yeah, I think we all kind of agreed this fight was going one or two ways, though, of that Kevin Holland's either just going to box him up on the feet and it's going to look bad that way, or that exact thing of just taking down its submission was going to happen. And then I would say the other thing I wanted to say is this is why I said I wanted to wait one more fight, and now I might have to wait one more before I like fully formed an opinion on De Ritter, because I know he came in with some hype. But like to get pieced up by Mearshart a little bit, I was worried with the Kevin Holland, and then I guess that doesn't matter when you get that takedown immediately and stuff. So, yeah, I guess we'll wait one more fight for my full opinion on him. I don't know. There's nothing else to say. I hope Kevin, and then like you said, Jerry, I hope Kevin Holland's not over the hill. I still would like to get excited for him to see him on the card, because the UFC does love placing him on main cards or pay-per-view main cards all the time. So
yeah, if we're gonna be putting Kevin Holland on pay-per-view main cards, I'd like to at least like think that he cares. Like to me, that one was like kind of looking like, well, I can't really grapple that well against guys that are bigger than me, so like I'll just go take my paycheck, and that's kind of not fun. I don't really enjoy that. So I mean, it doesn't mean that like you can't put him in there against somebody that's not a grappler and it's not a different outcome. So like I'm interested to see what the future looks like for Kevin, and I'm kind of disappointed in the performance as well, because like I didn't really learn anything about Reiner de Ritter either. I was kind of hoping to get a little bit of a tell on de Ritter, but like I didn't really. Like I still don't know how good this guy is.
Is there anyone you guys want to see him fight next to maybe kind of prove? Do you want to see him get a ranked fight, or do you want to see him fight a guy just outside the rankings again, like he did with Holland? Because I'm with you, James. We didn't learn anything. And same with you, Anthony. Of like we need to see another fighter too, even to see what he really has. I don't know if they just throw him to the Wolves, throw him to a ranked fight and see what happens, or
I think if we're gonna do these shenanigans with this guy, let's at least figure it out. Looking at the rankings, like I could give a shit less about Pereira and Shara Bullet. Like, I mean, he'd rout both those guys in grapplings, not because he's like, I mean, that's just like my personal opinion on those two guys as like defensive fighters. So like then you're looking at like Jack Hermanson and Fluffy Hernandez. Fluffy's booked against Brendan Allen. And I think if he wins that fight, which he's a big favorite, I think Fluffy is going to be moving upwards. I do think that would be a good fight though. And hopefully people would just like line up to bet Reiner to Ritter, and then I could just like take Fluffy Hernandez at a decent price and just take my round 3, 4, or 5 submission or finish or whatever it'd be, and just get out of there with some cash. But I think he beats Brendan Allen, moves up the rankings. So I think Jack Hermanson at 13 is a decent shout of like Jack Hermanson has like a functional striking game. It may not be elite, but like he went out there and intelligently fought Joe Pyfer over the course of 5 rounds and won, who I respect Pyfer striking. So like Hermanson can still strike, and like Hermanson is never, I mean, I don't consider him an elite world-class grappler, but like if you're punking Hermanson on the ground, then like I'll tip my cap to you for sure. Like there's no like just going out there and you're not just going to ragdoll Jack Hermanson in the grappling phases. So that's kind of the route that I would choose.
The last thing I wanted to say real quick is going back just to the Kevin Holland part. That's funny about kind of phoning it in for a paycheck, because I think the UFC should maybe just book him against strikers for like fun fights, because this is the same guy that didn't want to wrestle Wonderboy at all, broke like both his hands in that fight, and tried to stay in there as long as he could, not even being able to fully defend himself properly. But he was just like, no way, I'm still going to go out here and try to, knock this dude out. And what a big difference between when it gets to the ground, a couple years later, and then it doesn't seem like he's going. So I think the UFC could still just match him up with fun striking things is what I wanted to say. And then, yeah, I don't really have a pick for the Ritter fight. We'll see who they give him. I did like the Hermanson, though.
Yeah.
I can see that name.
I think if it's a ranked fight, it has to be Hermanson. Otherwise, we'll see what happens. What weight class is Bo? Is Bo Nickel welterweight, or is he middleweight?
Bo Nickel's 185. That's actually not a bad fight, honestly. But then that does raise the question of like, my only problem is I have questions about both guys. So like, you put them against each other, like maybe I'm getting no questions answered, and I'm just like confused again.
Yeah, even worse than before.
Otherwise, like I think it's a really cool matchup, but like I may just leave that one like, holy fuck, I'm still confused. So it's just like doesn't mean it wouldn't be like a fun matchup for the UFC, but like for like our position of like trying to predict whether these guys are good, like it's kind of a tough one.
Yeah.
Also, for those interested in the karate combat event tonight, we have Alien Perez on the card, Robelis de Spain on the card, a lightweight championship fight, and some grappling matchups and a couple other former UFC guys. Tyson Nam, hard hitter at 125. So not a bad karate combat card for anyone. I mean, the event will be over by the time we get this out, but they stream them on YouTube, so you can go watch the replay free of charge, and I mean, have a good time. So there's that for everybody. Another karate combat update. All right. Final thoughts for UFC 311. Prelims had a decent amount of action on there. Do you guys have any fights that stand out to you? I believe it is your turn to lead us off, Anthony.
Yeah, I'll just speak on one fight. I was super high on him. Hype prospect was Peyton Talbot, got fraud checked a little bit. But I did so I had to hear everything first about how bad it was and all that stuff. Went back and watched the full thing. I'm not totally off of the train personally. I didn't think it was as bad as I was hearing about. I just thought it was a young guy that definitely needs to work on his wrestling defense. Got manhandled a little bit by a vet, but I thought the striking was still there. I didn't think he like completely was gassed or anything too. Like I thought he definitely got tired, but I didn't think there was like a huge cardio issue. He seemed a little defeated, but it didn't seem like he gave up on himself the whole time. So I just think, sometimes not everyone can be undefeated forever and every performance be great, especially when you're young and you fight a vet. I just think sometimes those fights happen. And he definitely now knows, areas he needs to improve on. But I will say he got fraud checked a little bit because I was a minus 1200 or something. So, you know, huge upset and everything. But I was not as turned off from that, the way everything played out and from that fight as it seemed others were. So I'd be curious to maybe see how you guys felt as well. But
I mean, I think people overreacted a little too much. I do think he was definitely fraud checked a bit. I don't think it was the end of anything for him. It's one loss. We saw four other guys on this card lose, or three other guys on this card lose that have their first losses of their career. So there's still plenty of time for him to figure stuff out and evolve. And that's where I'm more curious to see what he does next and how he fixes that, because he did just get taken down 8 times out of 15 attempts. So
actually, I did want to say before I sound totally biased, my issue with that fight though was some of those takedown attempts were god awful, and he was giving them up. Like the dude was shooting from so that was my biggest issue. I forgot to make it sound all like, oh, it wasn't that bad. No, that's what some of those were. Like angering me to watch, of like shooting from so far out, not even a good takedown and stuff. So yeah, before I sounded completely biased, yeah, that needs to get fixed. But I was just saying I still liked what I saw in other areas and stuff.
Oh, yeah. No, his strike-up game was still stand-up game was for when it was standing up was not too bad.
Yeah, I think the one thing Peyton Talbot is great at, and certain guys are really good at this, is staying calm. Like when you watch Merab, great cardio, like it doesn't even matter. Like he's so frantic, but like other guys you see who move a lot like that, just gas out. But like there's a certain type of fighter who stays really calm and they never gas out. And I think Talbot is in that, in that group where like he's in terrible. He was in like he got his back taken, I believe, if I remember correctly. I believe he was Barcelos was threatening with a head and arm at one point, and he never looked panicked. And that helped him stay composed, helped him defend, helped him work up on a couple occasions. And then when it got to the feet, he wasn't so dead from grappling that he could still strike. I think that's a positive. So I think the cardio and striking is still positives. Now the grappling, when we talked about this on the podcast, I will say I was slightly unprepared because I was so busy trying to play catch up on the main card previews. I didn't really look at the prelims much until after we got done. I ended up betting Barcelos at plus 750. I won't pat myself on the back too hard because I only put a half a unit on it, and it was the only bet I got correct. So, like, no parade for me. So it was a reverse sweep other than the plus 750 underdog. I mean, couldn't have drawn it up.
Not a bad one to win.
Yeah.
Jamal was real quick. I'd say Jamal and Kevin Holland, two leg parlay kind of cruised the night in the group chat for everyone.
Yeah. Jamal did me no favors. The Islam KO did me no favors. We'll talk about Rinya Nakamura in a minute, but he did me no favors, and I had multiple different angles on him. But ultimately, I look back at some of my notes, and because I do a lot of Dana White Contender Series notes, and I just looked back on some of my notes on Talbot and just wasn't very optimistic about the grappling. The Nick Aguirre fight, he didn't look great on the ground, but Nick Aguirre's like not good at MMA. He's just like kind of good at grappling and had some grappling success. So I was like, at plus 750, I'll take the stab. Didn't even put a full unit on it. Half unit type shot. Ended up hitting, but like one thing that people are really underselling is Barcelos' like grappling credentials. Like he's a legit black belt. Like he is very, very, very good at jiu-jitsu. Like you said, Anthony, some of the takedowns were bad, but like once you get to the ground with Barcelos, he is very good. So like I think that is people are acting like he just got grappled up by a bum, and that is like completely not even close to true. Barcelos can grapple. So like I think that should be also pointed out that like he's not getting out grappled by a guy who's going to get cut. He's getting out grappled by a veteran who grappled his whole entire life and won like high level jiu-jitsu tournaments. So that has to be noted as well. One thing I will say about Peyton Talbot is I don't think he's dodging the accusations like Jiri Prochazka did. People are really hitting him hard with it. I won't say some of the things that I said while I was watching about his relationship with certain American musical artists, but we'll keep those off the podcast and just leave it at that. So hope he's doing well and hope he's learning jiu-jitsu and competing in some MMA focused grappling exchanges.
He's genuinely in the worst sport for like toxic masculinity fan bases too. Like it's tough. The way just he lives life, it's like some people won't even get it.
And I want to know who told him that tattoo was a good idea. Maybe it has meaning or something, but it's an interesting looking one. We see some really cool ones in the UFC from people all around the world. And that is not one of them, I don't think.
Yeah. I will say for Peyton Talbot, he did I do expect some grappling improvements. He posted some merch on his Twitter, posted a link to some merch, and then he quote tweeted the link and said, "All profits will go to learning jiu-jitsu." So at least he understands what he's got to work on, and he's still young and athletic. So long term, I don't think this should kill him too much. I'll just talk about. I'll eat my crow on Rinya Nakamura right now. I've said so many positive things about Rinya Nakamura, but unfortunately, it was a bad look against Muin Gafarov. And one of the things that I'll constantly say about prospects is there's talent, right? I think Rinya Nakamura's got all the talent in the world, but he was in there in the octagon as like a minus 700 favorite, and he didn't fight. Like, he just didn't do much fighting. Like, he just kind of stood there and let the other guy fight. And, like, that doesn't win you fights. Like, sometimes those are just the things you can't predict. You can't predict that a guy is just going to not fight when he's in the octagon. Some guys have bad cardio. Some guys have bad chin. It can be tough to see those ones coming. But the guy who just does not fight is it's a really tough one. Rinya Nakamura is like a sensational grappler. And they didn't start grappling until the third round. And they accidentally started grappling because they, like, got somebody, like, they got close together. Like, once again, we're recording this on Friday, so I don't have the exact exchange in my memory. But, like, they, like, accidentally got close together off, like, some punches or kicks being thrown. Someone slipped or something like that. And they end up in a scramble. Nakamura wins the scramble in, like, 2 seconds and gets on top and starts threatening submissions. And it's like, oh, thanks, man. Thanks for waiting to the third round to grapple when you've been grappling your whole entire life. Then you went out there and just didn't grapple for the first 2 rounds, lost the first 2 rounds. And then now you start grappling when you're down 2 rounds. Now you got to chase submissions. It's like great game plan. Didn't really throw much out there. Like, man, the thought process behind the fighting just doesn't match the skills. And it is a tough one because I thought all the skills were there. And he can still make improvements, but like there's things in there that I'm screaming at the TV. Like when you're a minus 700 favorite, you're losing, and then you're like laughing and joking around and slapping the guy's hand in the middle of the round. I'm like, stop. You're not his friend. Go attempt the takedown. Like, you're losing. You're undefeated, and we're laughing and smiling because you just missed a spinning wheel kick or something like that. Like, fucking hell, go fight. Like, you haven't done much fighting. I've been watching you for like 12 minutes. There's no room for this laughing and like slapping hands type stuff. Because to me, that's like you already lost the fight and you're like, whatever. So very disappointed in the Rinya Nakamura performance. All of it mental and like thought process stuff. Don't think any of it had to do with skills, which is even worse. He's like the opposite of Talbot, or Talbot just like wasn't good enough, but he showed you like the heart and like the will and like that type of stuff, where Rinya just had all the skills and was just like, whatever. And to me, that one's harder to swallow because it's like a disregard for your own career, where like he had no business losing that fight. So that was a disappointing one for me, for a prospect I thought I had high hopes for. Don't even know what to think now.
Yeah, I mean that was one where it's like if you looked at the odds without knowing who was who, and they just gave you the numbers, you would have thought Nakamura was the heavy underdog just because he didn't look like he even had the heart of being a favorite in there. It looked like he was was ready to lose from the get-go, which was bizarre considering how solid he's looked so far.
Yeah.
So Jerry, if you want to go, I was just the one fight I was going to speak on, was the Peyton one.
Yeah, I mean, those were the two I was really kind of looking at. The two guys I will just give quicker shout-outs to. Bernardo Sopaj, after he got baptized in his last time, came back, looked pretty decent against Ricky Turcos. Turkey. Oh, God. I'm giving up. Tercios. There we go. Words have gotten a little difficult, but he looked solid in that one. And then Bogdan Aguskov got a nice submission in the second round over Billy Elencana. So those are the two. I don't have much to go in detail about him. It's just those are two that submission was impressive. And then, in fact, because I was betting again, I was kind of betting on Tercios just because I didn't know if this dude's chin was going to hold up at all after he got smacked about last year.
I know we had kind of said like this is one of the interesting things to see how people respond, and I mean that's all you could ask for right there. A good little win because that was a gruesome knockout, like we said. But and then like I think you guys said that he was kind of winning a little bit in that first fight before that happened, or at least looking competitive. So.
I'll quickly touch on Grant Dawson and then another fight after. But for Grant Dawson, like, I didn't think there was a chance in hell he was going to go out there and dominantly grapple Carlos Diego Ferreira just based off my opinion of Ferreira's grappling, and he did. So, like, tip my hat to you. Good grappling performance from Grant Dawson there. And then middleweight, Zachary Reese and Azamat Bakoyev. Bakoyev's a new fellow, went out there and got the stoppage. Don't really have much on the performance. I just thought that was a bizarre referee stoppage. I think it was great timing, but then I think that the ref like stepped in and like absolutely bounced Zach Reese's head off the canvas and put him out even worse. So like that was one of the more baffling things I've seen, and I was like not it was a complete accident, and I think it was a pretty good time stoppage. Like I think he picked the right moment to step in, but like holy hell, you stepped in and just like pushed his head off the canvas and bounced his unconscious head off the floor and put him out worse. And then Zach Reese was out for a while. So that was bizarre. And I don't know the last time I've seen something like that. Probably like maybe it's when Herb accidentally fucking jumped down Poirier against Justin Gaethje. That might be the last one. That one was even a little different because he's like out cold and he's trying to get in there. This one he's like pulling off a guy who's doing ground and pound, so it was even weirder than that one in my opinion. But yeah, so those were my last two final thoughts. All right, did you guys want to touch on the 313 main and co-main events that were announced? I don't have a ton to say, so I can kind of leave the floor to you guys on this. I'll just say two great fights. Pereira and Ankalaev, main event, lightweight title. I think for like, I don't love Ankalaev, but I think that's one that had to be made for like divisional parity, like fight we haven't seen. He has earned it at this point. And I think if Pereira gets the job done, he can move on to maybe bigger and better things, or maybe even a rematch with Prochazka or Trilogy, excuse me. And then for the co-main, love Gaethje and Hooker. Thank you for making it 5 rounds. And this for me was a fight that I had for 5 fights that need to be booked in 2025. In the article for Vendetta Sports Media, this was on there. So like if you want my opinions on the matchup, you can read it there. But I'll just say that like 2 violent and entertaining guys who haven't fought, so book them to fight 5 rounds. Easy enough. So I think they went 2 for 2 on those matchups for various reasons, but I like both of them.
Yeah, Anthony, I'll let you go first. I gotta run and grab my computer charger because it's about to die.
Oh, okay. Well, I was gonna try to keep it quick, but yeah, exactly like you said, James. I think not only, I mean, like we always say, Pereira fight, I'm here for it. Book it. We'll be there. But I think this was the fight to make 2 important, as in the Ankalaev fans have been asking for this. Like you said, he's definitely earned it. It's kind of the only real fight left. But the other thing is, I think for Pereira fans, this is a good fight because now if he beats the wrestler, like there's no like asterisks, not even there's not one really at all now. But now there's really nothing people can truly take away from or hate on him for. Like, oh, his grappling's poor. You know, he was avoiding Ankalaev. So I think this is a huge opportunity for Ankalaev, and then great for Pereira as well. Just to fully, I would say, also help stamp his legacy too. With the whole can't wrestle allegations and such. But and the other thing, like you said, I don't know if it gets much better than a Gaethje Hooker fight with how good especially Hooker looked in his last one too. So, and then I'm interested to see what title implications follow that fight, and hopefully, I imagine it lives up to it for 5 rounds. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we guys summed up most of it. Anything for Pereira is fine by me, especially after the fact that had he not done the Ankalaev fight, we'd be seeing a third fight with Jiri Prochazka after this weekend, and I personally don't really need to see that again. I'd rather see a second Jamal Hill fight. So might as well get it out of the way, and whatever happens, and it happens. It's the fight that had to be made. It's the right fight to make. So with that, I'm here for the Dan Hooker and Justin Gaethje. The way I see it going, you know those Rock'em Sock'em robots? That's how I see this fight going. Just two guys just throwing fists, throwing kicks, and seeing what chaos, and see who's the last man standing. And I love that it's 5 rounds, but I don't know if it will need all 5 rounds.
The last thing I did want to say too, did you see that? Because I didn't want to play. I am obviously a little biased towards Pereira. I will see. I think there's a for sure pathway Ankalaev can win that fight. But did you see the thing where Jiri was like, "Well, Ankalaev said he would only stand up and wouldn't wrestle," and he's like, "And I'm a man of my word. So personally, if he doesn't stand up and only use his hands, I don't know if you can trust that guy." So I just thought that was funny. He's like trying to assure a Pereira win, basically.
That is funny. I didn't see that, but I did get a kick out of that. I will say this is the one thing I'll say about this fight that I haven't said is I think this for me might be my most anticipated matchup of the year, because on a scale of like dumb to like dumbest of all time, Nurmagomedov Ankalaev has a chance to really cement himself somewhere on that scale, because he's certainly dumb. But like, man, if you go out there and don't try to grapple Alex Pereira, you are climbing the dumbest of all time rankings. And he might just do it. Like, there's a chance he gets knocked out while attempting 0 takedowns. Like, that is a real possibility just because he's too dumb to go out there and be like, I got to grapple him. Like, he might actually go out there and strike with him just by way of being dumb. And to me, that is fascinating. Like, that to me I would be laughing. Like, I think that'd be the most entertainment I'd ever have in a fight. Like, wars, like knockdowns, him going out there getting knocked out while attempting 0 takedowns. I'd be on the floor like in a ball, laughing, rolling around my living room out of pure like comedy. That's how he would approach that fight, and the chance that it's a real possibility is crazy. Like, the fact that I can even say that sentence and like it might come to fruition. The fact that it's a might, if you had to line it, it might be the more probable outcome. That's how crazy it is. So I am truly that's what I'm looking forward to with that fight.
I agree. To be the physical like epitome of like a peak human, you're in the top 1%, could probably beat up 99% of people on this, or 99% of people on this planet, and we're just we're not really using our skills. It's like the fight IQ to be so good at everything else and be so dedicated to your body and the techniques and the skills, and we've never upgraded fight IQ is truly something.
It is amazing. Last thing I will say before we get out of here, I pulled up this UFC 313 card. A couple of good prospects on the card, but the one, the only, Josh Van is listed on the card as a prelim. Let him open the main card. For Christ's sake, all his fights are bangers. Put him on the main card. He's fighting Bruno Silva, so I believe it's going to be a ranked fight, like 13, 15, something like that. Maybe one of them's unranked. I could care if they were both unranked, but like if they're ranked, it's easier to justify the main card spot. Right now, it's one of the best 5 fights on the card. They may be adding fights, so maybe that changes, and maybe it should be a prelim, but like, let's get Josh Van up these bouts or bout orders. I'm tired of seeing him on the first 2 or 3 fights of the night. Put him in a co-main event, or excuse me, a main card, not a co-main event. Put him on the main card. Let him open the main card. Introduce like the more casual fans who only watch the main card. Introduce them into Josh Van, because everyone who likes MMA needs some Josh Van in their life. And that is my final statement for the podcast. And then we can actually talk about his fight, and it doesn't have to be a final thought as well. So we can like do a full breakdown for his fight. I would also selfishly, I would like that part of it as well.
Yeah, we gotta Josh Van, I think, is going to become the show's new favorite fighter now that Anthony Smith might be gone. So, because we need to find someone.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see who we cook up.
Come up organically.
Yeah, exactly.
Well.
One of these days we'll find it. All right. Thank you to everyone for tuning in and listening to us talk MMA for an hour and a half. We always appreciate it. Make sure to go to vendettasportsmedia.com. Read the website, not just UFC content. There's all sorts of things, especially if you're an NFL fan. NFL draft stuff coming up, NBA stuff heating up, and they'll roll into the NBA draft as well. Every other sport under the moon that's not just UFC. Make sure to check out the website, vendettasportsmedia.com, and make sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We appreciate that as well. So please do those two things for us, and we appreciate it. And tune in next week, which will probably be a preview of the Fight Night card that's coming up, which is a pretty good Fight Night card. That is, I believe, a Saudi Arabia card, or it's a Middle East card, but we've got Adesanya headliner for a Fight Night. So that is a great Fight Night card. Make sure to tune in with us for that. We'll see you next week.